Good afternoon, everybody. Today is a matinee of sorts, doing one a little earlier than usual. And today is episode 299, one before the big 300. And today we have Master Jeff Reed. And I'm really excited about this Cabales Serrada for a couple of reasons. One, we're covering it more. And two, there's so much we're going to cover here. I mean, his journey, national team, going to the Philippines, he made weapons, whip and knife, all this good stuff we're going to get into. Plus, we got some questions in. So I can't wait for this one. And he seems like he's a pretty cool cat. So yeah, this is going to be fun. So without further ado, what I'll be talking about is musician work too, and how that maybe ties into his Eskrima. So. All right, here we go. Hey there, sir. And again, I want to thank you for coming on. As you heard from the intro, I'm really looking forward to this. So,
thanks for inviting me. I appreciate it. Glad to be here. Time's up. Got to go.
Yes. Hey, that was good. Thank you for coming on.
And you had me playing air guitar with that intro.
I know. I saw it on the bottom, and we're definitely going to tap into your musician stuff and all that. But so during the test run yesterday, we kind of, your FMA first experience, you kind of played around, a PTK guy, and you got one drill, and that was what you were working on until you went to a tournament or exhibition of sorts and saw and noticed GM Cabalis. Is that accurate?
That's the outline of it. This was November 1985, and Max Palin had a karate tournament going in San Leandro. And of course, Max Palin's a pretty well-known name in FMA circles. Yeah. So I was down there, competing. I was doing Kempo at the time. And during the lunch break, they announced they were going to have demonstrations of Filipino martial arts, different styles. And I was excited because, of course, I still have Danny Santo's original, book, the FMA, book. And, I had very, very brief exposure in the past, both, as a kid seeing it in the Philippines and, Kip, Bob Flores, the Kitty Tercia guy from the Philippines. So, my friends and I, we'd been trying to figure out drills from Danny Santo's book. And of course, we were hopelessly lost. And,
just like from a paperback.
No, I've got a whole library of martial art books, and it's like if you don't know what you're looking at, they're useless. And if you know what you're looking at, you don't need them. But it's a nice collection. So anyway, all my teammates took off to go to lunch. I said, no, I'm staying to watch this. So first out there was Ben Largus's group. And there were like about, I don't know, must have been 20 people, and they're all in matching uniforms. They look really nice.
I've seen some of that, and they're all like in the columns.
Yeah, or it's a big square, and they're all doing their, their saya, all in step together. And I'm like, well, that's really nice, but, at that point, I probably knew about 50 forms of martial arts. I mean, I had, and Aikido, some Aikido forms, and a ton of Kempo forms, and some other stuff. So that's not what I'm looking for. And what I remembered from what I'd seen in the past, was just like this sort of brilliant savagery of the art. It was how it caught my eye. And anyway, next Max came out with Jordan Palin, and Jordan was all padded up in weak-half gear. Of course, we'd never seen it before. We had no idea. It was kendo stuff. And, Max proceeded to beat Jordan up, which is okay. Father beating up the son. It's a good exhibition, but, it didn't really do a whole lot for me. I thought it was interesting. And then they announced, Angel Cabales' group was coming out, also with Anthony Davis. I think he got a byline mention in there from his group. And these guys all came out there, and there's maybe about, 10 guys in total. And it was a ragtag looking bunch, T-shirts and, sweatpants, nothing matched. And they just looked like they'd come in on, playing, basketball in the hood kind of a thing, right? And they bowed in, and bam, they went at it. And I was like, just, oh my God,
Oh, okay.
that is what I am looking for. I mean, it was the real deal. It was live action. It was fast. So anyway, they got done with the demo, and I walked all the way around the room, and I go over there. I'm going to introduce myself to Angel Cabalis, and I knew who he was from down in Los Santos book.
Mm.
So and I'd always thought he'd already passed away. So I'm like, oh my God, this guy's a living legend. I can't miss the opportunity.
Yeah, sure.
I walk over there and I walk up and I go, Grandmaster Cabalis, my name's Chef Finder. I loved you. I put my hand out, shake hands. He puts his hand out to shake my hand, and somebody steps right in between us.
Oh my God!
Grabs my hand, and I'm like,
police.
And I'm like, who the heck is this? It's like, do they think a grandmaster needs protection from somebody like me? Anyway, that was Anthony Davis. And he then proceeded to, give his big introduction and, ended up giving me a flyer. And I got to say hi to Angel, after I sort of, cleared the inspection. I didn't get a pat down, but it felt like it, Anyway, and then they were doing a seminar 2 weeks later up in Vacaville, which is just, it's sort of near Travis Air Force Base, not too far. I was living in Berkeley at the time, so about 35, 40-mile drive. And it was a 2-day seminar, and I went up there, and the first person I ever worked out with was Carlito Bonjoc.
He's such a great guy.
And yeah, he taught me my stuff. And then and the other person I worked out with that weekend that I remember was David Ma. And these guys were just, both incredibly knowledgeable and skillful. I was just blown away.
So obviously that was an internet connection issue. Hopefully he'll be coming back. He got on right away. In the meantime, while we're waiting for him to come back, I will take this opportunity to say hello. We have Eric O'Brien, Florida, Brett Reeds, Kentucky, Chris Nolly, Georgia, if I'm not mistaken, Nick. You gotta watch out for that guy from New York. And Master Hope, Carlito, he just mentioned you. Fantastic goatee. And we got Henry. All right, folks. Hopefully that was just a quick glitch on his part. Nothing to do with here, so it's definitely something going on with his end. So hopefully he'll be coming back shortly. I'm just going to send him a quick message. And unless he had I shouldn't even be thinking this, but like a power outage or surge. He did mention that the pretty big heat wave they have currently going on. All right, let me just see if he's, he's here. All right. There we go.
Clicked on the camera icon a bunch of times. You can hear me again?
Yeah, no, perfect. Yeah, I figured it was just a glitch or something going on.
No, because my internet connection looks good, and I went and checked the router, so I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, I just told you, but like you got on really easy, so it couldn't be anything major. So
no, I mean I could hear and see you the whole time.
Okay, well, yeah, you're
I
back.
So the program just didn't want the camera on. So
hey, we got some folks here. Master Carlito's here.
So. Yeah, I know. Hey. Hi, Carlito. Yeah, you were the first person I mentioned.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thanks, Reese.
yeah. The goatee was mentioned. Yep.
Yeah, and I saw Nally's comment. I'll get around to that. So anyway, yeah, I went up to the seminar, worked out with those guys. And at the end of the seminar, I went over to Angel and I said, listen, I love your system. I love what I'm seeing. I think I was shown up to angle number 4, techniques up to 4. And of course, I went home and remembered maybe basic couple angle 1 and 2. But anyway, so I go up to Angel and I say, I love your system. I don't want to just be a seminar student. I really want to learn this. Mm-hmm. And Angel's standing there and he has Anthony Davis who's standing over him to his side. He looks at Angel and goes, well, this is my student Angel, and he lives closer to you than me. So you train with him first, and maybe you can train with me later. And that was the arrangement. So apparently, the deal was Anthony was promoting Angel at seminars and basically bringing him out of retirement. In exchange, he was kind of putting his fledgling organization under Angel's umbrella. And so, in exchange for the promotion, Angel was sending him, students
Okay.
like me that were, in the area. So he was kind of, trying to branch out like a satellite school was Angel's idea. So I trained with Anthony for about a year, and it was a good education. And then um, we'd gotten up to angle 6, and I realized he didn't know any more of the system. He started trying to throw fillers in there, and I could tell immediately that it wasn't Serrada material. It didn't have the same feeling
Oh,
to it.
after angle 6, he okay. Okay.
Yeah. And so anyway, at that point, the arrangement was approved that I was transferred from training with Anthony to going out to Stockton and training with Angel. So I spent the next year training with Angel. And, to this day, I think Anthony's, teaching, was pretty good. He did a good job. But Angel was such a stickler for detail and really wanted to make sure it was his imprint on things. So first time I'm out there, he says, "Okay, let me see what you know." So go through angle 1, go through angle 2, 3, and then by angle 3, I'm kind of noticing him squinting a little bit.
Oh, things were starting to change a bit.
No. I mean, it wasn't bad. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just his level of drilling down into the details. Saying the devil's in the details, or I reframe it as the depth is in the details. Angel was, I mean, his ability to break things down, and he was really remarkable. Of course, English was like about his fifth language. I mean, he spoke, Visayan, Tagalog, Cebuano, probably Hiligano, Spanish, I mean,
Oh,
and then
wow.
English, and then English. So a lot of times when Angel would teach, he'd be very specific on what he was showing you to do, but the explanation would be like, do like this. So there was a lot of do like this technique.
Do this. Do.
Yeah.
So it's funny. So what? Like obviously there was something fascinating you saw to go from what you saw in the exhibition for you to go travel to the seminar for you to request eventual teaching with him. So as a whole for the audience, like what was it that really like captivated you for you wanting to go deeper in the system?
Um, it's a live action system. Okay. Um, Shortly after I began training with Angel, Anthony Davis introduced me to John Wong, and John was a big influence. Okay, I mean, he had trained with Chow and with Imperato and so forth. I mean, he was like ex-marine, 5th degree or higher, in like 4 different arts, and had spent 3 years at Jesuit seminary and came from a Kahuna family. So he had this like incredible, wealth of knowledge. And so when I began training with him, I thought, okay, I'll learn to translate from hard style Kempo to soft style. And I realized what I got was really a lot more of the philosophy.
Guessing. Oh, he's back.
I have to keep clicking that camera thing. It keeps turning me off.
Oh, so okay. So all right,
The camera keeps turning me off.
Okay, so folks, if he goes out, nothing too serious. It's just a camera issue.
They got me. Yeah. So anyway, John talked about the difference between live art and dead art. And a dead art is one in which everything is memorized and you go through it exactly the same way every time. And it's it's like watching Ben Largous's group of students all marching in lockstep. And it's like it's good martial arts. It's beautiful. It's a skill, but I was looking for something that was like a practical fighting art that, that had a reputation for working, which is why I got into Kempo, because I was working in clubs. I was like a roadie for bands and doing stuff.
Oh, okay.
And so I was in environments where I figured I better know something about how to handle myself. And Serrada just on a visceral gut level just really hit me as like,
Yeah, you saw something,
this
obviously.
is a live art, it's responsive. And, we have drills and everything. And yes, it can become sort of a formula and we run through it. But at a very high level, I mean, it's a very spontaneous art. And it's supposed to teach you to have reaction to whatever's happening. So
Mm,
that's when I saw that first demo at Max Palin's tournament. That's what blew me away. I mean, these guys went out there and they're doing all this different stuff, and it was fast, it was hard hitting, and it was just, it
it
amazed.
seems, I mean, from what I've seen of it, again, I don't claim to know a lot about Cabales. I mean, what I've seen on video, very dynamic. I mean, they're, I mean, no, and I see the intention there. I mean, nothing's short of that. I mean, so.
I mean, Angel kind of had a reputation like, fastest gunslinger in the West, and so he attracted a lot of, you know, I'll just say badass, heavy hitters. They wanted to be, the next fastest gunslinger in the West kind of guys.
Mm,
Um, and they'd come in regularly. Like I was at the gas station at 1 o'clock last night, and this guy tried to mug me, and it's like there were a lot of stories, around Stockton. What I heard from one source is, there's bodies buried in the farm fields that no one will ever turn up. So, the idea of challenges and so forth, Stockton culture is very real. In many ways, going to the Philippines felt like going to Stockton. It was a lot of a similar vibe.
yeah.
The Filipino community out there, it's very tight. It's their own community, and there's a lot of old timers there, so you have to learn to hear the accent.
Yeah, and you were during the. I mean, you were during the golden years. I mean, you were '80s. I mean, like they were all still alive. Just,
They were. I can't claim to have the same kind of in-depth knowledge of these guys like anyone who grew up in Stockton. I mean, Carlito,
mm,
Ron Saturno. I mean, these guys, they rub shoulders. Went out drinking, with these guys.
yeah,
So it was like they got a much deeper immersion into it. I mean, some ways I felt like a tourist. I think I got treated that way for a while. I'd
but at
come.
least you got to experience it. You know.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I think I
Yeah.
had a couple of bones broken. Training out there. My hands got popped by someone just wanting to make sure I was in my place.
So, gosh, so there obviously there was that protective element or aspect of him, and just by you know, you just can't go up and talk to him. It seems like you know.
Angel was a very humble guy. You could just go up to him and talk to him. That was the thing. Here's a secret I've learned about dealing with all these like, grandmasters and so forth. They're so used to everyone kowtowing and being, solicitous. I mean, you walk up to them and go, "Hey, Angel, how you doing?" And they love it. They're treated like just a human
Just a
being.
normal, yeah,
I
yeah.
mean,
That's
I've gone to parties like down in Castro Valley, where, it's like there's, like 30 or 40 people in the room, and you go, "Hey, Grandmaster," and half the room turns around, there's probably, 4 or 5, Kaji Kembo grandmasters in there kind of thing. And it's like, no, it's like, "Hey, Al Novak, how you doing?" They love just how, not, being human, being human.
yeah. It's just like
The
a breath of
Angels great.
fresh air, not hearing the titles and just yeah.
You know, I saw that years ago. Friend dragged me this Muktananda thing at this city yoga place down in Emeryville. And Muktananda was very real, he greeted people very personally and everything, but the acolytes around him, oh my God, sit here. No, move over 6 inches. I mean, just trying to be domineering and trying to be close to the master. And,
Mm.
it's like, anytime you got someone at the top and people are looking to position themselves to be at the tip of that pyramid,
I know this is always. I saw that in Sayok way back when I was with them. It was just like, and I
Mm.
was gone. Like I'm not dealing with this, man. I'm just not, I'm not. It wasn't Chris, like you said. It was the guys underneath that were, trying to be the next whatever they were
Right,
thinking.
because as they're learning it, they're competing with each other, and they all want to be close to the master. When I was at Angel's funeral, as I'm leaving, Darren Tabone walks up next to me, and we all have tears coming out of our eyes. It was very emotional. And Darren says, "Yeah, I had a special relationship with Angel," and I looked at him and I said, "Darren, we all did."
Yeah.
And that's the way it was. I mean, if you were, open and honest with Angel, he treated you just like family. It's like, there were people he held at arm's length because maybe he didn't trust their motives, or,
Mm.
whatever he thought was going on. Um, but, I never had a problem. I went out there, I trained, I took notes, and I sent students out there to meet and train with him. And so,
Mm.
that was one of the things is, February 1987, we had that seminar at White Tiger, which was the Kempo school we had in Oakland. And I had a camera set up, and a friend of mine recorded it for 5.5 hours worth. And I edited it down because there was a lot of repetitious stuff in there. And I've put up excerpts online, which people can find on YouTube. Um, for the White Tiger videos. I think I'm on there as Serrada 33 because I'm 33rd advanced certificate from Angel. So that's why I use that moniker. But anyway, that was an amazing event. I mean, some of the best players from Stockton were there. And I look
Mm.
at myself and a couple other people I know. And it's like, we all look like such beginners. And I think there were like four of us in the room that wound up going to the Philippines on the team in 1989. But so it was kind of a really seminal event. But what that was to make it official that I was now running a Cabales Academy out of that location. So when I was teaching, I was doing it officially under his auspices. And I didn't yet, I was almost a year away from my advanced certificate. I was still going out and training in Stockton.
Mm.
I think some people were upset about that because they were far more advanced than me. And to this day, they're my seniors, and some of them are just, brilliant athletes.
Mm.
But being in Stockton, you were supposed to send your students to Angel, and I wasn't in Stockton, so it was a new rice bowl, so to speak.
Okay.
But yeah, that was another. It was a little bit of a source of conflict. It's like who was I?
Yeah. Who was he? What is he doing? And what is he doing teaching?
Right, 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 right. I was accused of being a spy for Anthony
uh,
Davis. And my only motivation was I wanted to learn the art. I
right.
loved
You want to
the
learn to
art.
perpetuate it, and yeah, yeah.
I fell in love with it. I fell in love with the art. And I think Angel could see that I had that pure love for it. So, there were two promises that I had to make to him. Like I got to see him when he was on his deathbed. His daughter Linda called me up and said, Angel's in the hospital. We don't think he's coming out. And I said, well, can I come and visit him? She said, well, only family is allowed in right now. I said, okay, let me know when I can come visit. She says, you can come today. Whew. So, yeah, I went out there. I spent about half an hour with him. And the first thing was he made me promise to keep teaching. Okay. Whatever I did, because he basically taught me how to be a teacher. He didn't see me. I mean, I'm not the athlete that a lot of the guys were out there. I don't have that, that gunslinger mentality that some of these
Mm.
guys have, and, you know, so Angel didn't see me as being ambitious in that regard, but he saw that I was diligent in how I took my training. And so, he basically always emphasized, that he wanted me to teach it the way I was learning it. And to
Okay.
this day, I consider, Angel had a methodology to the teaching, and it worked. I mean, it turned out a lot of really, really good fighters. And, I'm not a genius. So, I rely on the teachings of a genius and the people that supported him, in putting a system together. Um, So that's, to me, it's like if you master the basics, that's the keys. If you look at Angel's certificate, there's an open lock with a key next to it. The idea is he's giving you the keys, and he'd say this: I've given you the keys. It's up to you to unlock the door. And that means you practice, you research it, you find what works for you. There's techniques in the system that maybe don't work for me very well, but they work for other people. I teach it. It's in the system. It
Yeah, 'cause
belongs.
they may like it or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've had students take things. I said, well, I'm not comfortable with this, and they just boom, 5 minutes later, they do it better than I do. It's like right
Yeah.
on.
But
That's the
you're
elements of the
tall. Like,
system is it gives you the tools.
yeah.
And Serrata, um, to me, is like looking at the lowest common denominator in how things work in Filipino martial arts.
Okay.
It's like when I was in elementary school, and we had to learn to diagram sentences. Your nouns go here, your verbs here,
Mm.
your adverbs now. And you have this like, you frame everything out. And to me, Serrata does that. I remember Greg Henderson, when he was visiting here. When were the Rodney King riots? He was here during the riots. And I remember we were working out, and he was teaching the warrior system at the time, which he was training under Abner Pasa, I believe. Um, and he was like Momoy's top student in the Philippines. Greg was
Mm.
Momoy's top student out of the Philippines. And so they hooked up at the tournament in 1989 when I was there. So Greg was teaching that. And he said, well, we have 3,500 techniques in our system. And I go, I don't know, we got a handful. So he would do some technique, and then I would duplicate it. So, oh yeah, it's just like we do it like this. And then I do a technique, and he said, oh, that's like technique 1,740. So it was like what they did is they sort of drew everything out to its logical conclusion, every possible variation. They kind of wanted to have that understanding. In Serrata, it's like if you understand how all the basic things work together, in other words, the principles of the
Mm.
movement, it's like learning to play music. It's like once you're competent on the instrument, it's up to you to be creative with it.
To be have a creative
You can
element.
play
Okay.
jazz, you can play blues, you can be a classical musician, whatever.
Mm.
So Serrata, anytime I look at anything, the most famous phrase in Filipino martial arts is "We have that too." and and to a large extent, I look at what other people do. Because I understand one system well, then I can look at what they're doing and see what the difference is. Um, and it's like I tell people, if you understand this and then you see that, now you know the difference between this and that. If you
Yeah.
don't understand this and you see that, your knowledge is incomplete.
Mm.
And Angel and some of the other old timers, they used to talk about what they call spaghetti eskrima. People would go to seminars, they learn a little bit of this style, a little bit of that style, and then they think, oh, we can just put these drills and those drills together and make
Oh,
up
mix
our
and
own
match.
system. And the old timers would call that spaghetti. And it's not that you can't learn one system and then learn another, because if you know the difference, it's like, okay, if I'm fighting a guy who's good at this, and he knows what I know. Maybe if I use something different, it gives him something to think about, slows him down just a bit,
Mm.
that kind of a thing. But um, the point being is each system, the timing of the system, the way they set up movement to movement, is if it's a well-designed system, all of that stuff is integral to how it works. And so when you do spaghetti, sometimes the elements that you're working with, I'm not going to say are incompatible, but there's inconsistencies there, and a less experienced person doesn't see that. So anyway,
No, no, no. That's
so I specialized in one system. My idea is if I understand Serrata well, then I can understand what other people are
when you look
doing.
at compare and contrast to other systems. But it's funny because I remember reading one time that Dan Asano mentioned. I hope I'm correct in this. That he found Cabales Serrada like to have the essential building blocks, something that you just mentioned. When you have the basics down, then you can go from there. So when you went up to train with him, was it one on one with him feeding you correct responses, et cetera?
Mhm.
Like, what do you instill in you?
Yeah. Yeah. Dan Inosanto's quote, I believe, was that Angel is a true master of the physical art. Okay. And there's no arguing with that. I mean, Angel had it down to, um, there's a story I'll tell about ranging at some point. But yeah, I would go to his house or to his apartment, and sometimes we would train for a while, and then go run errands, go have lunch, or sometimes we would just go have lunch and then train. It was always funny because especially if we were there like on Wednesdays. If I was there on a Wednesday, there was a Gertie's Mabuhay restaurant. It was a little hole in the wall place in the old Filipino part of town, and it was a buffet. It was like an all you can eat on Wednesdays, and Angel would like make sure that I was really well fed. He wouldn't eat much. So then we'd go work out. I'd be like all loggy, it's nap time. And Angel, he'd be, yeah, he had all kinds of subtle tricks. He would sometimes at demos. I shouldn't give this away because I've used it. Sometimes at demos, Angel would walk out and he would drop his stick. And people would go, "Oh, that old man, he can't even hold on to his stick." It was a way for him to, not get challenged. People would think, he's just too old, not worth it. It was a setup. It was a gimmick.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny.
Conflict avoidance.
Jeez. So
yeah, I'd go out there and we would work out, and most of the time it was just one-on-one with Angel. Him feeding, showing it to me, making me repeat it over and over and over and over and over. If he didn't like it, you could maybe learn like 4 or 5 techniques for an angle. If you're stuck on one, he might keep you on it for a couple of weeks, before he really let you move into other material.
the other stuff. Okay.
I mean, yeah, no, he was very, very specific, and you could be off by such a small amount, and he'd be like, no.
Yeah, you're and 2 weeks later, you're still.
I would, and then the afternoons, a lot of times other people would come by. Usually it was either Kimball Joyce, who now goes by Sultanuddin. Back then, he was still Kimball Joyce. He came by frequently. Wade Williams was another one who came by. These guys are way above my skill level. I mean, they're just fast, powerful, accurate. I mean, they are some of the best discriminators I've ever seen. And so they'd come, and then Angel would have me work out with them, and he would, watch, have coffee or a cigarette or something. Yeah, so I got coaching from some really, really good people, but it was in Angel's living room under his auspices. And then there were times where I'd stick around, and I would then, if it was a day that Angel was teaching at the academy over at Lee, I would go there and I would work out with whoever showed up there. So a lot of times it was Jerry Preciado. Of course, it was Sultanuddin and Jerry, and they were a phenomenal demo team. I mean, those guys were just like, big, strong, fast. They were impressive.
Wow.
Darren Tabone started showing up around that time. Frank Riamas had been away for a while doing Kempo, and he started coming back and training while I was there. Jojo Sorabin was another one. Guys, his names I can't even remember. But yeah, no, it was like, it wasn't a large group of people, but the folks who came to train, they were really serious. And I remember like Jojo, as a beginner, here's the thing about Angel's methodology. He would make us count everything out. Outside block, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, lock and block. And he would make us count it. And it just sort of seemed like, oh my God, this is just like so basic and boring. But it was like a mnemonic device. As you got better, he'd say, okay, now just say it to yourself in your mind. Don't say it out loud anymore. Just say it in your mind. Okay. And then as you got better and you go faster and faster and faster, you keep hearing that count in your mind. And it's very specific on the technique, so things get watered down generation to generation. This is a pet peeve of mine. Like why more of us, including myself, aren't out there getting better teaching opportunities. I see guys doing it, and they'll come up and they'll be like, they'll be like this, just really quick, boom, like that. And okay, so you got a 90-degree rotation, a little bit of a critique into your strike. Angel always came in with that stick vertical, and he would have us practice with a loose, relaxed grip, vertical. Why? Well, 180-degree rotation with a relaxed grip is going to be more powerful than a 90-degree rotation with a death grip. It's just going to have more
Mm.
impact on it. Um, it took me years of studying the white tiger videos that I had. And this is why I put them online for people to look at so they can do their own research. Number one, to see what angel looked like authentically. And number two, if I'm teaching it and people go, that's bullshit, that's not how Angel did it. I say, well, look, he's doing it right
Well, look at the
there.
video. Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the things I noticed, like he was doing this one technique, it was like an inside block. He comes with an upward slash, a couple of abanicos, back down into the lock. And his stick, he did those abanicos, his stick would literally disappear. I mean, I would go through this. I had video editing equipment, frame by frame. And all you see is a blur because he's already done like 3 moves in one frame. It's like the old story about Bruce Lee having to slow down because when he was, trying to do Hollywood on camera stuff,
Uh,
the camera couldn't catch it. It was too fast. One frame would have an entire move start to finish. You had to slow down. And what I finally realized after years of looking at it, going, how is he that fast? I realized at the point where the stick is disappearing, his hand's already retracting. It's like he's whipping that tip. It's not just an abanico, strike, strike, strike. It's like snap, snap. And it's that
mm.
retraction, puts that boom. It puts that punctuation at the end of the strike. It's very, very powerful stuff. And it's like the old Kung Fu adage, it's like you can build muscle quickly, but tendons take a long time. It's like my bodybuilders on steroids, they rip everything up because the tendons aren't strong enough for the muscle development they've got.
Interesting. Okay.
And yeah, so to be able to do those kind of boutique strikes and have your wrist be able to withstand those forces, I tell beginners, don't get too ambitious with it. You'll tweak your wrist out. You need to build it up,
Mm.
develop that capacity. And so, when I was teaching, I would teach, certain like wrist warm up and limbering exercises, mostly from FMA. I had one little twisty movement I learned from a rock and roll drummer. Everyone hates it, but it's a good exercise. So anyway, now I had that question before I forget about it. The matrix is 16. This that was right up at the
Let
very
me
top.
see. I'm looking it up here.
Personality. You want to know
Um,
if that was something Angel taught or if I made that up, if I remember seeing it. There you go.
oh, the matrix of the 16. Okay. Yep.
Yeah. No, that's something that I made up. And it's the basic techniques from the first two angles of Serrada. Now, this got me into some conflict, particularly on the old Anion Digest online. I remember Ray Terry was talking about how Angel always taught, 3 techniques per angle, for 12 angles. And that is the way he taught in the old days. And a lot
Okay.
of people learned it that way. And they still do. So, for instance, they might have a cross block for angle 1, no umbrella block. They might have an umbrella for 2, no cross block. It's not the way I learned it. I actually, learned 4 or 5 techniques for each angle as I was going along, maybe more. Um, but there were always like 4 basics how I learned it. So for angle number 1, you had your outside block, inside block, cross block, and an umbrella. For angle 2, you have an outside block, a cross block, a shoulder block, and an umbrella. Okay. And so all I did was say, okay, if you make a grid out of these, you have 16 possible combinations in the exercise.
Mm.
And so basically in Serrata, we teach basic tactics, and then we have our lock and block drill, which is one person is just feeding strikes, and the other person is simply doing the defenses and counters against them. And then we have our flow drill, or what Angel called sparring, which in the old days was an 8 count, and then the inside block got added, so making it a 10 count. And what that basically does is teach you your most efficient counters to every basic block. That's the
Okay.
purpose of it. And again, it's like, basics win fights. If you talk to professional fighters, they might have 2, 3 really reliable bread and butter techniques.
I mean,
You
look
might
at
have 10
boxers.
techniques. Huh?
Look at boxers.
Yeah, that's exactly. I'm thinking about boxers. Exactly. You got a whole. You might have 10 techniques that you like, but you got like one or two that are your knockouts. And
Yeah.
it's like the whole thing with Serrada. People go and go to seminars and all kinds of flashy stuff going on. My Kempo teacher taught a long time ago, that advanced techniques are just combinations, longer and longer combinations of basic movements put together well.
Yeah.
That's what advanced techniques are.
That's
And so,
wow.
what Angel's idea was, if you understand the basics, you can flow. Going back to John Wong, that's the difference between a live art and a dead art. In a live art, it's responsive. Whatever happens, you deal with it, you move, it's not
Mm,
prearranged. And in a dead art, if you're doing a two-person form and something gets out of sequence, either the form falls apart or someone gets whacked,
yeah.
because no adjustment, in the format.
So here's what I want to touch upon: the infamous lock and block. So I've seen this. I've seen it done with, and Guru Terry's here. I went. He luckily, fortunately, came to Connecticut. God, I was pretty. I hate saying this, like pre-COVID. It sounds like we're talking about like a whole another time frame, but and
Feels
they were
like it.
showing some of that with the stick and dagger, and all that. So block and block. I guess for the folks who maybe not know what is it and why.
They probably know it under the term not numerology, numerato.
Numerato. Okay.
Numerato, numbers. Okay. And a lot of systems have that where one person is feeding strikes by the numbers while the other person practices the defenses. That's all it is. So, done effectively, one person is practicing attacks, the other person is practicing defending and countering. So, at the very basic level, you've just learned a few techniques. And so I feed very slow, give you a one, you do a technique. I wait
Mm,
until you come back to your lock and block position, which is your on guard position.
that's
Okay.
okay. On guard.
It's an
Okay.
on guard position. Consider
Okay.
it an on guard. And essentially, you've got your stick. Um, do I have a stick? Huh, I got something here.
You're the stick man. You definitely.
Yeah. So instead, you have it. You just kind of let it hang a little bit relaxed. So your
Okay.
hands
Remember
are
that. Okay.
Your hands
Okay.
are on one level. So there's your Daga hand. So here in this position, you have power to come up. You're able to come across. You're able to check down. You're able to come up. So it's a
Okay.
kind of a central position. In other words, if you have a high carry, do you have power coming up? How long does it take you to come down? So Angel adopted this position. I've seen a couple of other systems that do that. Hortensio Navalis, when I was in the Philippines, his style used a long stick, but they used the same lock position. And of course,
Mm.
Cabales. Navalis was from Panay. Angel was from Panay. So I went over and introduced myself and made that connection, and I became an honorary member of his club while I was there.
Oh, neat.
So anyway, yeah. So at the basic level, one person is feeding. So I'll just hold the strike until they get back to their basic lock position, and then I'll
Mm.
feed a thrust with the dagger, and I'll have them respond to that. Then they come back to the lock, and we kind of repeat that. And in the matrix of 16, I'm just basically getting them to run through the sequence of the first four for angle one, first four for angle two, and
Okay.
and to put the combinations together so that they're starting to develop a sense of flow from technique to technique rather than everything being a discrete, you do the move and you stop. you know
Mm.
uh,
Okay.
I mean, that was more like my old Kempo training. And then you're done. It's like, yeah,
And
yeah.
then you die.
Well, I'm trying to get everything to fit here in this little camera ring.
I cast a spell on
So,
you.
but and so I know in some schools they don't start to teach like lock and block till angle three, maybe angle number four.
Mm.
Angel had me, once you have angle number two, once you get that first technique for angle two, which was the outside block, he would have me do like an inside block for angle one, outside block for angle two.
Mm.
So always there was that sense of continuity. Um, this reminds me when I was in the Philippines, jumping ahead, we're kind of doing time traveler's wife kind of,
Oh, it's okay.
in and out of things. I was up in Manila. staying at this at the home of one of the WECAF officials, and he came and worked with me. And this was a guy who'd been the bodyguard to Chief of Staff of the Philippine Armed Forces, and he trained with everybody in the Philippines. He was a professional boxing referee, So and goes by the name Rambo in the police department because he's got the bullet wounds to show how tough he is. So anyway, so he comes over and he goes, let's go in the back and work out. And so he starts showing me basic arnis, the little 4-count, corner drill and so forth. And we spent about half an hour doing that. It was okay. And I said, I'm going to be honest and say I got a little bored. And so I said, let me show you what we do. And I started showing him like Serrada. I think I showed him 2 techniques as far as I got. And he stops and he looks at me and he goes, I had no idea there was anything that advanced in America. And I said, oh, well, we have old Filipino grandmasters just like you do.
Exactly. Wow.
Anyway, we were done. He didn't want to work out anymore.
Oh, yeah, here he is. You're coming over there and showing him. I never did.
Yeah, it shocked him. It really did.
Yeah, he wasn't expecting. Huh.
One of the things that happened when I was over there, Vicente Corin, Grandmaster Corin, he was Cacue's training partner for like 50, 60 years. I'm there at the tournament in Cebu, and he pulls me aside and he goes, your scream is different from everybody else in this tournament. And he says, who's your teacher? I go, Grandmaster Angel Cabalis. He goes, I don't know who that is. Angel wasn't well known in the Philippines. I mean, he made his reputation here in America.
I would have just assumed
over there. Right. And so I said to him, he goes, who is his teacher? And I go, Felicissimo Dison. Ah, come here, sit with me. And we went and sat up on the stage where we could see the whole tournament. And he's pointing out, and these guys, they're high for stuff. He's pointing out there's 3 rings going, different fights. He goes, that guy's from this style. Can you see his technique as he does this little thing? And that guy's Doce Paris, and they like to do this little thing. And I'm looking at it going, I can't tell the difference. I mean, these guys were so deep. But that was the thing. Everyone there recognized when they saw what I was doing, that was different. They knew it immediately. And I didn't know Dison's connection and lineage with them at the time. Now, later on, Sultanuddin went over and he spent time with Tatano Estrissimo. And of course, we had certain hand symbols, signs and so forth, that we would use, with our stick. And when Estrissimo saw those, he recognized the signs, because those were saying things that Dison and his group would use, ways to signal this is what we're going to do without being verbal about it. So for instance, we go to a demo and Angel would use certain signs so that the students would immediately know we're changing the drill, we're going to do something different. Nothing is said, but everyone's on the same page. And so apparently that's real old school kind of knowledge. And the Estrissimo people have that stuff in theirs. So Dison being a common linkage in that. And yeah, Spadi Daga, that's really Dison's trademark for his lineage. What I was told when I was over there was, and for all the rivalry between different styles, maybe it was the Japanese occupation that brought people together, just like maybe resistance to American and Spanish before. But I remember being told by who was it? I think it was Benjamin Luna Lima. Was saying that in the old days we all trained together, single stick, double stick, knife. We all trained together. But when it came to a Spadi Daga, nobody wanted to play with Dison because he was that good.
Wow, that's impressive. I have a video here to show, and it's I thought it was pretty interesting how you explained the subtleness of this, and again, it's with that guy, that guy Nick Merchant, man, that character. He's from New York. That guy.
This is like written that blog post about angle 2, umbrella, and cross block. How you have to kind of just shift slightly to beat this, right?
Okay, yeah. So the idea being angle 1, the attacking one, comes to here. The attack is coming here. Angle 2, it's coming here. It's a little different. So yeah, on an umbrella, let's say, for angle number 1 or crosswalk, I'm going to face it this way. For angle number 2, it's coming from over this direction. Facing this way. So the difference is, if I look at my foot, angle 1, angle 2, angle number 1, angle number 2. I'm facing here, I'm facing here. It's very, very subtle, but Angel always talked about you face the direction the power is coming from. And 1 and 2, it's a subtle difference, but it optimizes. For instance, on a crosswalk for 1, but here, there's my ship. On angle number 2, it's coming deeper in towards my center line. I have to carry it a little further because I'm coming here. Now, there's more of an angle shape.
So I found that just the subtleness you were talking about pretty interesting.
You notice how close I'm keeping that weapon also.
Yeah.
Angel's idea, now cross block is almost like the universal technique in Serrada because there's a version of it on literally every angle. And in most cases, it's a very soft deflection, but then you have angle number 3 where it's a power block. Where it's a power on power technique. But for instance, on angle 1 or 2, Angel's idea was you want the person to feel like they've missed. You want their weapon just to slide through, just like hitting air, and so yeah. Talk about subtleties. So there was a story I said I wanted to get back to, and I like telling this story. And this goes back to the old establishment of the Tokugawa regime in Japan, and you had this guy. Also, I want to say Miyagi. What the heck is his name? I could look it up. But you had this guy who was his name's slipping me. He was the personal sword instructor to the shogun, to the first shogun of Japan. So in other words, he was like the most badass swordsman in the army. And he was sent around to visit various castles, make sure that the local daimyo were all on, with the program of unification and to squelch any dissent and so forth out in the hinterlands and so forth. And anyway, so what happens is this guy winds up at this one castle and, there's the daimyo up on the dais and all the samurai lined up, seated, and all the proper introductions and everything. And then this old warrior says, we've heard so much about your famous, Shinkaji, Ryu, system. Could you please, honor us with a demonstration of your style? And the guy says, okay, sure, but we're all friends here, right? So, no live blades. We're just going to do this with boken, with wooden swords. So the two men face off. And hey, they step back and they bow. And this grizzled old samurai says, I didn't get it, can you show us again? So they step back, they face off, hey, they bow at the end of it. The guy goes, I still don't get it. And so God, I could look the name up while we're talking, but I'm not going to. Anyway, he turns and he looks at the daimyo and he says, sir, you're a seasoned warrior. Certainly you understand, the value of what I'm showing you. And the guy goes, I'm sorry. It looks like the same basic technique, that we teach our kids, in their first lessons. And, it's like, just like in FMA. Hey, we got that too,
Yeah.
And anyway, so it's bugging me. I can't remember his name. Anyway, he's like,
Budokai?
No.
Dan said that. Yeah,
No. I'll pull it up in a second.
Yeah, no worries.
Anyway, okay, give me a second. So anyway, what he says is, I'm sorry, I thought I was showing this to experienced warriors, not children, right? And of course, the whole room bristles. Okay, I'll have it in 1 second here. Anyway, the whole room bristles. Yagyu Munenori.
Yeah, I
Yagyu
know.
Munenori, famous guy, one of the top-rated samurai in Japanese history. So Munenori, he goes, I'm sorry, I'm showing this to seasoned warriors, not children. The whole room's like, huh?
Yeah.
He realizes, oh my God, I blew it. I'm supposed to be here as a diplomat. And he's a warrior. He's not a diplomat. He's not used to, making nice talk. And he tries to apologize. And the daimyo says, nope, we're not having any of that. You insulted us in our house. Now you owe us. It's on. It's for real. Now it's live steel. So they get out there. They bow to each other. Hey! They step back. Munenori holds up his arm. There's a slash to the sleeve of his kimono. Just then, the other guy's head goes sideways. Blood skirts out, kind of like nearly headless Nick in Harry Potter. And blood spurts out, and the guy hits the ground dead. So, anyway, Munenori, he looks at the daimyo and goes, my technique is a matter of one sun. A sun was like the distance, the last joint of your index finger, the tip of your finger. The technique is the distance of your finger.
Wow.
Yeah, it's the same basic movement, but the technique is the distance. And Angel talked about it the same way. He said, it's a matter of an inch. It was like when it came to blade, when it came to stick, it's the last inch is the part that's going to kill you. Because if that last inch doesn't get you, the rest of it's not there either.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Good point. Yeah, if that's not there, the belly
particularly when it comes to blade work, right?
Yeah.
A little quick. I remember once I had this little keychain Balisong blade, was like about, maybe an inch long. I showed it to Angel kind of as a joke. And he was, oh yeah, you could kill someone with this, just like that. He goes to my, on my neck, right? And I'm like, you can't show this anything to this guy without him saying, yes, here's how you could kill someone with it.
That's such a good point, though. That last inch, you're right. Because if the inch is not there, well, nothing before it's going to be.
So when you watch Angel, like on the White Tiger videos, like when he's like feeding Wade Williams lock and block, John Wong spotted this in a heartbeat. You can see Angel; he's always calculating, like not just the range, but is this still friendly or is it combat? Is it still friendly or combat? He's always right there, just out of range and just right able to get in and hit you in range. And, he's mastered that range. He's got you read like a book. And at any point, if it's out of control, he's going to settle it.
Yeah. One way or another.
He was amazing. He was amazing.
Jeez, man, that is something. Wow. So, you're progressing on. So, what rank did you end up finishing with GM? Oh, current.
Yeah. Rank. Okay, so I got the advanced certificate, which was really, Angel only had two certificates at that time. It was advanced and the master's. And the difference between the two was to get the master's, you paid him an extra $1,000. You got extra training in. That was the deal. And when I finished my advanced, I didn't want to stop training with him. So I said, Angel, I'd like to train for your master's. Well, he kind of gave a little sour look on his face. And, again, I'm an average athlete. I'm a good student. I've had good training, but, I'm not, some amazingly, fast, powerful guy, and he kind of gave me this look. And he said, I've already shown you everything. You don't need the piece of paper. I've shown you everything. You have the key. That's his phrase. I gave you the keys, up to you to unlock the door. And so I realized, okay, I need a lot of practice. I know what I know and how well I can use it, what I can do with it. Quite a ways away. So later on, when I knew Angel's health was failing, I brought it up with him again. He says, I'm too sick now even to sign the piece of paper. It says, you don't need it. It's just he says, the master's is just for politics. And he said that often. The master's certificate was for politics. And basically those were going to be, his his top-notch students, the fighters, basically, that he had trained. And most of them were from, like, the older days, preceding me.
Okay.
He expanded the list, towards the end of his life. I don't know, some of it was maybe economic incentive, but it was also because he had a new generation of students coming in that,
That's true. Yeah. Right.
and he'd been retired for a while. Then he had new guys coming in and moved him up.
Mm.
But several times I've surprised people. One time, 1996, I was down in Los Angeles at the WECAF World Championships. I was a forms judge and a ring referee at that tournament. And it was the one time Darren Tabone showed up. He had his son Ches and Gelmar Cabales with him. They were, I don't know, probably, I'm going to say, early teens at the time. They were coming along really nicely. Anyway, and so it was the only time I ever got to work out with those guys. And it was only for like about 5 minutes. But Darren stopped us. And I don't remember what technique I was doing. He goes, "Where did you learn that technique? Who showed that to you?" I said, "I got that from Angel. Angel taught me that technique." And many, many years later, I had a similar experience. I was out in Stockton. It was one of the opportunities I've had to work out with Vincent Cabalis.
Okay.
Yeah, we haven't maintained a close relationship, but from time to time, things come up. Anyway, and I did a technique, and I got the same response. Or it's like, "Where did you learn that?" It was from Angel. In fact, I think Nick got one of those, that he did a technique that Angel showed me, and he did it with Vincent. And I think what he was told is, "Don't show that to everybody."
Oh, okay.
Well, like my old Kempo teacher, Al Thomas, used to say, there are no secrets in martial arts. There's just what you don't know.
Yeah. I'm along with that line of thought. Yeah. It's what you don't know. Exactly.
Yeah, that's right.
So before we segue into the tournaments and all that, and you go in the Philippines, so I know you're currently not teaching COVID and all that, but when you were teaching, what did you try and instill in your students as far as their, Serrada journey?
As much as anything, the importance of basics done well. If you understand the basics, if you understand that Serrada is like a roadmap, you'll never get lost. You can go and learn any other system and you won't be lost. I like to make the analogy from where I live. You get to San Francisco by, crossing the San Rafael and Golden Gate bridges. You can cross the Bay Bridge. You can go all the way down around San Jose. There's a couple of bridges you could use on the way there and head back north. You could take a boat, you could take a helicopter. A lot of ways to get to San Francisco, as long as you know where San Francisco is. Serrada is like that. It's like there's a lot of ways you can do whatever you need to do, but it's all there. If you understand it, you have a map. And that's the most important. Well, the other most important thing is the love of the art, that they actually appreciate what it is they get for it. There's 3 rules I had for teaching classes, and I figured this really covers everything. Rule number 1 is you train safely. Angel always emphasized that. Because if you don't train safely, you don't have training partners. Your training partner is worth their weight in gold, because without a training partner, you don't improve. You have to bring them along with you on your journey. Their skill improves, your skill improves. So number 1, you train safely. Okay. Number 2, you're responsible for what you've learned. I don't want to have to teach you the same technique you were shown in your second lesson for the next 5 years.
For the next over decade.
Yeah. I actually had one student who was kind of like that. I got frustrated and turned him over to one of my students. And what was really interesting, he wasn't very good with a stick, but you put a knife in his hand, and he was the scariest guy in the room. He was a Filipino guy, and his uncle's a grandmaster in one of the Doce Pares lineages. And Dean, you went off.
Oh, there you go. That was the first.
Yeah.
We hit
anyway.
I went off, and can't even explain that one.
Oh yeah, now yeah, your voice is kind of like down a tunnel. Maybe it'll fix. But yeah, this
Okay.
guy's uncle had given up on teaching him, and then I gave up on teaching him. But it was one of those things. With a stick, couldn't remember it. With a knife, I would never want to face him. So
Interesting. Okay.
different mentalities. Some people just, emotionally, what do you respond to? So anyway, my
Mm,
second rule though is you're responsible for what you learn. So rule number one, train safely. Rule number two, you're taught it, you gotta work at it.
yeah.
Rule number three, this is the important one. Have fun. Because if you don't like what you're doing, you're going to quit and go do something else. Take up
Yeah, it's gonna
underwater
be a
basket
hard road.
weaving or learn to play harmonica of all things.
Yeah,
So,
have fun. Absolutely. If you're not having
yeah.
fun,
So, this is one of my things about, you know, there's so many people in martial arts in general and see it in FMA, they got this whole macho attitude, and how tough they are. And it's like, good for them. And it's like, there's people out there that, maybe they need that kind of imagery and reinforcement.
mm,
Um, but if you don't like what you're doing, there's got to be a benefit in there for it somewhere. And most people aren't looking to become professional fighters or go out there
yeah, yeah.
in the woods and, or do, Dog Brothers stuff. Um, so there has to be a reason for it. And here's the interesting thing: the true warriors that I've taught have been women. I've had more women come back and tell me how they've used things they learned from me, well, either in Kempo or through Serrada, than all the guys combined.
Interesting.
I
Okay.
mean, I had one gal, some guy pulled a knife on her in San Francisco, tried to kidnap her kid at knife point. She disarmed him, and then she showed him how to use the knife.
Yeah, attempted kidnap. Yeah, I would return to sender. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no. She left him some nice trophies, as they would call them in the Philippines, scars. Um, I had another gal. Her ex-husband was a retired professional heavyweight boxer. Kidnapped her one night. He was going to rape and murder her, and she put him in the hospital. She put him in intensive care. Wound up with a bruise on her cheek.
Wow. Good for her. Good
I
for
mean,
them.
yeah, I mean, she took a 2x4 away from the guy, busted up. It was a long story. She sent me a 6-page letter about what had happened. And this was someone who, when she came to me, was a complete pacifist. Wouldn't kill a fly.
Mm,
I've had, when stories like that come back, I'm like, wow, I've never had to use the stuff at that level of intensity. I mean, I've had a couple of scraps, but, nothing where it felt like, murder was, in
yeah,
place.
was right.
And I've had a couple of women come back at me with these stories, and I'm like, good for you.
Yeah, I mean,
And
really.
and guys get involved in martial arts because their friends are doing it, or it's a macho thing, or they want to do tournaments. There's a lot of reasons. But women, it seems to be like more direct. They're into it because they've either been like, emotionally, physically, or sexually
Mm,
abused at some point in their life. They're tired of that. And the next guy that comes across that way, they want to be prepared to dish out the attitude adjustment.
yeah.
And then, they take the training well, they listen and they apply it. And it's like they're success stories. I mean, training women to me is like a no-brainer. They're
Yeah.
really good students. Yeah.
Yeah, more like yeah, right. Like you said, they have just that more particular direction. They're zoned in more for the reasoning. And so, okay, okay, sparring. We're gonna segue into this. So, a couple of these questions I had similar to Franz. Um, so, what made you get interested in the tournament fighting and Arlen Sanford? Let's hear about it.
Oh, I never got into this stuff because I wanted to be a tournament fighter. I mean, to me, tournaments they're a game, and it's part of the learning curve. You
Yeah.
For me, it was like, okay, well, it's a chance to test out what I'm learning and see if I can use any of it. So the first tournament I went to was Alfredo Bondilan's 1988 first U.S. National Narafil tournament down in San Jose. And I fought one fight there, and that was Arlen Sanford. I'd never had on the weak half gear. I'd never had on that helmet,
Yeah.
and and Arlen was he was a pretty sophisticated fighter. At one point, he grabbed the face mask and turned it, and I'm looking out the ear hole.
Wait, where did my head go?
Yeah. It's like, I'm in here somewhere, And anyway, at the end of the fight, and so he won the match. I don't remember if it was a split decision or whatever. He won the match. It was a good match. So at the end, we're taking off those recap jackets, and I take mine off, and I've got 2 gashes on my forearm. And he's laughing at me. He goes, "Oh man, I got you good." He takes off his jacket. He has 3 bloody gashes on his arm. And I said, "Oh, you outrank me." So that's my Arlen Stanford story. It's the only time I've ever met the guy. Okay, I mean, we're Facebook friends.
Yeah, I had him on here. Good, seems like a good guy.
Yeah. But I mean, he was, and that was the tournament where he, Eric Naus, and Mark Denny huddled in the corner
And
started
kind of
saying,
yeah.
there's got to be another way to do this. I actually eavesdropped on part of that conversation. I suppose if I'd walked into it, I would have been in it. But I had other things going on. There's only one other guy from Serrada. No, it wasn't David Ma. I can't remember who it was. There was only one other guy in Serrada that entered that tournament, and everyone else in Serrada was like, "No, we fight for real. We're not tournament fighters." They were too cool for school. And I'm like, well, this is school. I'm going to go down there, and maybe I'll get my head handed to me, but I'm going to see what happens.
Yeah, the experience alone. I mean,
yeah. So what I realized is, so anyway, a while later, I got an invitation to be on the U.S. national team, and I said, well, this is a chance to see what's happening in the Philippines. So I said, I got to train for it. So I got a couple of sets of the weak half armor, and this was an interesting progression, which was when I first put the armor on, it's like I'm looking at the inside of the face shield. That's all I can see. I'm looking inside of this mask. And then as I got a little more experience, and my main training partner at the time was Steve Van Manen, and he's with the Sion Cordo Cadena guys out in Oakland now with those guys. And he came out with a book, and he barely mentions me in passing. He mentions Doce Paris. The way I remember is he dropped in on Doce Paris class once or twice. He was my main training partner for about I don't know, like 6 years. I mean, he'd come over to my house. We would train from 4 p.m. until midnight, and we train in the dark with no lights, and anyway, God, I distracted myself. So, so I got 2 sets of the gear. So after a while, now when I'm fighting, I'm seeing the outside of my opponent's face mask. By the time I was ready to go to the Philippines, when I looked at my opponent, I'm looking him in the eyes. I don't see a face mask. That's when I knew I was ready.
Interesting.
So that's a part of my thing is like, I've got a couple of, so you asked about rank. So all I got, officially through Serrada is an advanced certificate. Now I have a couple of master's certificates that were given to me. One was from Ron Saturno and Khalid Khan. And apparently Angel had said, if 2 of my master students want to promote someone to master, they have the authority to do it. Or maybe it was 3, maybe Carlito might have been involved with it. I've got the paperwork somewhere behind me here. And then the other was from Mark Gonzalez through his organization. And the only reason I accepted those was, hey, I've been teaching 30 years. There's all these young guys who are gurus. It's nice for people to, to be able to say that, my experience, I'm teaching on this level, and these guys have been teaching for 2 or 3 years. They're still working their way up. They're on the learning curve of teaching, and I have X amount of experience. So that's why I accepted those certificates. And these are from people that I know and respect. But anyway, so in terms of the tournament, seeing people in the eye, one of the things is I try to incorporate psychological elements into what I'm teaching. It's like the whole idea, what happens when you put that helmet on? How does it restrict not only your vision, but how you approach the person that you're fighting, and so we talk about that. And the other thing, and this goes back to the women also, particularly that one who husband tried to murder her. A lot of times people can learn physical technique and they get to a certain level, and then maybe you start to see regression, like people who are brown belts in some system of karate, and they're training for black belt, but then you see their technique starts to get worse and worse and worse. Maybe they're doubting their ability, they're having a crisis of belief in themselves. And as a good instructor needs to have tools of one kind or another to get people over that hump, whether it's talking them through whatever the issue is or just listening to them, and I do have a background in psychology. I went through a graduate program. So
Okay.
I've studied hypnotherapy. I was certified in that. So, neuro-linguistic program. I try and apply these things. And I think that's important. I had one training partner who was for a long time, particularly in Kempo. That happened to him as he was getting ready for black belt, and his techniques were falling apart. And his sparring got worse and worse. And one day we're sparring, and he just stopped there, and he couldn't move. And I couldn't. So, to use the vernacular term, I bitch slapped him hard. And he looked at me and his eyes opened wide, and this primal scream came out. And it was like, you know what? It was like no one ever touched him like that again. That was the trigger he needed to activate. I didn't do it consciously at the time. It was just I was pissed at him. He'd been my training partner for 10 years. What the fuck's wrong with you? It's bam. And it was like this rage came out, and it just completely changed him forever.
It's what he needed, obviously, at the moment. And but I agree with you. Teachers have to be in tune to their students. I mean, you have to see their downfalls, their pits, or their roller coaster, so to speak. And you have to get in, get your hands in there.
Yeah, you can't really do that in large classes. I mean, you need one-on-one time relationships with students. At least, Serrada is one of those arts. It's not made for teaching large classes. I mean, you can present material, but it really is an art that is best done. Look at tennis players. You always want to play with a better tennis player, because they challenge you to up your game. And Serrata's like that. The only way you up your game is by working out with other people and pushing each other and getting pushed.
Yeah, no, for sure. So far as the national, how did you get associated with the national team? How did that come about? And then your trip to the PH.
No, I have no idea how I got on that list. I mean, obviously, Alfredo Bondalon had names of people who were in the tournament who were fighters, and maybe he invited anyone who was interested to go. All I know is I got a letter, and I said, wow, I really need to go and see what's happening in the Philippines for myself. Angel had been gone since he was 17 years old. So he'd been 50 years gone from the Philippines.
Oh, okay.
And so he really hadn't had, much contact. And he used to say, "Scream is dead over there." And since I'd been there when I was 11 and seen some of it, so I knew it wasn't dead.
It wasn't dead.
I needed to check it out for myself. And what better way than go to a tournament that's going to draw people in from around the country? So I called Angel up. And I said, "Angel," I was all excited. I said, "I got this invitation to go to the Philippines for this tournament." And at first he was like, "No, I don't think it's a good idea. They just want to make money off of you. I don't think you should go." And we got off the phone, and I sat there for about 10 minutes, and I just thought about it. And I called him back. And I said, "Angel, I really want to do this." And he says, "Okay, then, you have my blessing." So that was how I went. He gave me a stack of flyers, those little trifold flyers that he'd had made up years ago. Before Bruce Lee died, Angel and Danny Inosanto apparently at one point had talked about opening a Cabales Serrada Academy down in Los Angeles, and Angel had all these folders made up, featuring him and talking about the system and everything, with Dan Inosanto on there. Of course, that never happened. Things changed. And, But Angel gave me a bunch of those, so I'm over in the Philippines. They don't know. Angel doesn't know who those guys in the Philippines are. They don't know who's over in America.
Yeah, yeah.
So I had those. So I was handing those out at the tournament. I remember at one point, I think it was Richard Bastillo, kind of was like, we're all supposed to be on the U.S. team here, not promoting just one person. I don't care,
Yeah.
I don't. No reason for me to take all these home. I still have some around. But no, I basically I went to this event because I wanted to see what was happening in the Philippines and what other styles were still,
Yeah.
being practiced over there. It wasn't because I thought I was a badass or was going to win anything, and it was really funny because there were guys on the team who just like, yeah, I'm gonna be like the world champion. And there was all these, paparazzi. I mean, going over to the Philippines, it was like really different. I mean, it was like we had like a parade through town, like, we're on the back of these pickups and Jeeps, and the streets are lined with people cheering and
Mm.
all that. And at one point, this little old man looked just like Angel Cabalis, like about 5'2", looked just like Angel. And he's running alongside the pickup we're all standing in. And he's got a piece of like wooden lathe from like a vegetable packing crate in his hand. And he's going, "Ah!" And I'm just going, holy crap, that looks just like Serrada. It's like all this stuff out of Cebu, all these different
Mm.
systems. They're all really interrelated,
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, people in Cebu, they had to fight, folks from the south, from the north, from
From
the
the north.
east. I mean, they were like right in the middle of it. So they had to be able to deal with everybody's stuff. And I was just like, wow, here it is, this guy on the street, just
Yeah.
old man. So, that was a trip. And I was really quiet. I was there with my first wife. We basically we had our honeymoon, I guess, in May, and when we came back from the honeymoon, I had the letter to go to the Philippines, which was, I guess, in August. So I had my bride with me, and it was a little different experience. So I was like really quiet, and I didn't talk much. And all the paparazzi, they're taking pictures of everyone on the bus and everything. And when I made it to the finals, I look over and all these guys are sitting at the curtain. Does anyone have a picture of this guy? Nobody had a picture of me. I'd been there at every event and everything. I mean, I spoke up at the week half, charter conference. Everyone's talking about how the scoring works and all this. And
Mm.
I got up and said, ring generalship, also incorporates defense. And you all talk about scoring, but if someone's got a good defense against an offense, you have to give credit for that. And at least for that tournament, I think speaking my piece probably helped me get through it.
So wow. So how many were on the team?
Oh, geez. Should have
Or
looked for that.
about?
I should have looked for those photos. There were maybe about 12 or 14 of
So were
us.
you guys in particular weight classes?
We were all in weight classes. Yeah. So I was fighting, I guess, I was fighting light heavyweight. I was like 189 pounds. I'm still at the same weight I fought back in 1989. Um, Yeah, you mentioned Lottie Goidaga. Tom Meadows, I met Tom Meadows on the team.
He
He's the
was
guy who
on it. Okay.
created Lottie Goidaga. And interestingly enough, when he won the super heavyweight championship at that tournament, he was the first world champion in any discipline under Dan Inosanto. It's hard to
So, oh,
believe.
he came and represented. Oh, okay. All right. Okay. And you
Well, he
obviously,
was actually there as Doce Pares. He was under Alfredo Bondolon at the time. And then he got to meet Kakwe Kenyete.
mm,
And at the time, the guys in the Bay Area that were training under Bondolon weren't really getting the full picture of what was happening. I think there was a certain amount of, political like stuff within
mm,
the organization going on there. And of course, when these guys got over to Cebu and go to Cebu, headquarters, the lid comes off of that. They have access to the mother lode at that point. And I remember Leo Fernandez was on the team. And just that exposure he got being in the Philippines, he just during the tournament alone, from one fight to another, you could see him improving. I mean, just like I mean, just the most improved fighter in the tournament, no question about it. I mean,
Wow.
it really changed him, being over there. So, yeah, we trained, like one day in the basement of the YMCA in Cebu. And I did a practice sparring match with James Sacamano because he was in my weight class. And James was he was the other light heavyweight. And he was an AAU wrestling champion from Utah. And story comes up with him and Zubiri in Manila when we get around to that one. So we're doing our practice match, and the coaches that are watching, it's Richard Bastillo and Fred Degerberg over here,
Yeah.
and they both of these are guys that have trained with Angel to varying degrees. I mean, not like like really deep, but they knew Serrada, and anyway, James kept backing away from me. First he tried closing the gap, and I brought my own sticks. I had 24-inch sticks, and they met the weight requirements for the tournament, so I was good. And eventually, he's backing away, making me chase him, which was actually something I experienced later during the tournaments. And so after our third round, Bastillo and Degerberg, they waved me over and they go, it looks like you're missing too much. We think you need to use a longer stick. And I looked at them and I said, I'm not going to change everything I know 2 days before a world championship.
Yeah.
Well, just then, James walks up to us and he looks at me and goes, what the hell were you doing to me? You were so fast inside, I couldn't hold you off. And he turns and walks away. And Bastillo and Degerberg, they looked at each other and they both just made a left turn and they walked away from me, didn't say another word.
Wow.
So during my first fight in the tournament, and my wife is sitting there and she's watching, she's nervous, and Richard Bastillo walks by and he looks at me in the ring, he looks at her, he says, it was like first round, he goes, just don't worry, he's got it under control.
So how many matches did you have before Miguel?
Before who?
Before you
Oh,
fought?
McGeary. No, that was a separate tournament. I'm still talking Cebu here.
Oh, it's a separate one. Okay.
There were two tournaments I fought in. I went to finals in both of them. Yes.
Oh.
So towards the end, I think it was the first round. There's a disarm that I'd learned from Angel, and for 6 months before I went to the Philippines, I've been teaching to my students. And for the 6 months before I left, my daily routine was start doing bag work and conditioning, 10 o'clock in the morning. My training partner would come over noon, 1 o'clock. We'd train, for a couple hours, and then I'd have students from 4 to 7 o'clock. And then another training partner come over. We'd work out for another 3 hours kind of thing. And I was teaching my students this one-hand disarm. It was like a little, very technical. It's like a little 3-step thing where you learn it.
Okay.
It counts by the numbers. And at one point, the guy is standing in front of me and he kind of hesitates for a second. And it was the weirdest experience. All of a sudden, it was like tunnel vision. And I'd see my hand floating out through space. And I grabbed the stick and I wrenched out of his hand. And all of a sudden, I'm back in my body. Suddenly, I hear the crowd. I see the stick and I go, oh shit, I threw it on the ground. And the referee goes, point. And afterwards, the head referee for the tournament, he comes up to me and he's laughing. He says, here are the guys working the corner. The guys like Tatangeli Strisimo, Benjamin Luna Lima, Kencio Navalas. These are the guys doing the judging for this. He says, they were all laughing because no one saw what you did. Yeah. And they said, if you had held on to the stick, they would have said, clash, you're fighting over the stick. But because I threw it on the ground, they just go, the other guy just dropped it. And they gave me Nobody saw what I did. It was just a weird experience. It was almost like being out of body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jeez.
So anyway, Miguel Zubiri. That was the second tournament. Was the week after, and this was up in Manila. This was the World Invitational Tournament.
Okay. So this is okay.
A lot of people from the first tournament had gone home, so there were fewer teams. Not every country, stuck around. Some people had plane tickets already reserved. Um, I figured, hey, I'm going to the Philippines. I'm going to stay for like whatever.
Yeah. Make
Whatever's
the
happening,
most of it.
I leave the party early. Yeah, and that was interesting. I actually got to go to a meeting with like Fred Degerberg and like maybe three of the tournament officials. I was the only fighter, there. And again, we got to talk about the rules, and I got to talk about, don't forget the defense, shows skill in the art, and that's part of ring generalship. Um, that's where I met Dario Sarubi, GM down in Texas, and she taught me a Campilan technique during that meeting, which is a real simple technique. And I teach that one to my students. It's a real nice technique. I like
Oh,
it.
neat.
It's like, get your left and right set up, and says, this is how you go through the village and shot people down. So anyway, so I remember Wilfredo Roldan. Oh my God, he was like the comic relief on the team. He had this bad joke that he kept repeating endlessly to where everyone was sick of it. At one point, members of the Philippine team were coming up to like the Americans and asking for permission to kill him because they were so sick of the joke. And we were like, no, he's our problem. We'll take care of it ourselves. I mean, these guys were serious about this. Anyway, and he wasn't doing well in the tournament. I think he was a 4th degree under visitation at the time. 2 years later in the magazine, he was an 8th degree. But anyway, I think he lost like every match he had at these tournaments, and so he asked to borrow my stick. And he says, "Wow, your short stick really is effective. It's like magic." And I said, "Don't jinx it for me."
Yeah.
And he lost. Because he didn't, because the short stick, the techniques are different. We swing a little differently. Everything is tighter. It's not big motion.
Right.
But I mean, Angel kept his elbows in like a boxer. So anyway, James Sacamano fought Zubiri in the semifinals, and at one point, Zubiri disarms him. He grabs the stick away. And the referee should have stepped in and broke it right there. But he was too slow. When Zubiri got that stick, he started going double Sinawali on Sacamano. That got the crowd excited. But what really set things off was, remember, James was a champion wrestler.
That's
So
right.
he shot in and took Zubiri to the ground and pinned him. The place goes nuts. Well, Zubiri's father was a senator. Zubiri took his seat eventually. Miguel took his seat.
That's right.
His older brother was a colonel in the military, and he was there with about 30 of his men. And they took over the floor of the Jose Rizal arena for about half an hour. And I was there with the guy who had been the bodyguard to the chief of staff of armed forces. He's armed. He's got his 38 in his little belt pouch, his M16's handcuffed to the front seat of his car. These guys are serious, right? And he says, "Do you know what they're saying?" I say, "I don't speak Tagalog." He says, "They're telling the referee that if Miguel loses," this is controversial, okay? And I don't think it had anything to do with the outcome of the tournament. But what he told the referee, according to my friend, he says, "If Miguel loses, we're killing an American in the bars tonight."
Charming.
So this is what I knew going into my fight with Miguel.
Oh my God.
Someone's life could be in the balance in this fight. Yeah. Which didn't mean I didn't try to win, or that, and I know the moment that I lost the fight, it was like with like about 10 seconds left in the final round, and we're facing off, and we're just like trying to suss each other out. And I made a little mistake in my positioning, and Miguel comes in, and he popped me right on top of the head. And I caught him back with the counter, but it was a clean shot, and the crowd just erupted. And without that shot, I think I would have won, because it was a split decision in the fight. And that was what gave it to him. And we were all good afterwards. And I've got a photo of Miguel with James on one side, me on the other. We're all grinning and holding our medals and everything. And it wasn't any bad blood between us. It was a good fight. It was a lot of fun. It was a hell of a lot of fun, Yeah. So I didn't know anything about his background, or that he was Kali Illustrissimo or anything.
Bakan, too.
What really, despite guys like, Vicente Carine saying, can you see this guy fights this way and that guy fights that way? It reminds me a lot of what my Kempo teacher used to talk about, karate tournaments. It's like sort of like your international style. Because when you get in there, you can't tell if someone's Taekwondo or Kempo, they're all kind of doing the same stuff. You're not doing the techniques of the system, you're just kicking and punching and fighting, So, but I think the Serrada was a little different. Angel had a technique he called 3 strikes and a man will fall. And it was like top of the shot to the top of the head, abanico to the temple, abanico to the opposite temple. Bam, just like that, 3 shots.
Oh, okay.
And I remember coming out of one of my rounds, and someone walked by and they said they could always tell when I was fighting, because when you hit the mask on this recap mask, it goes ding like that.
Yeah.
They said it sounds like a cash register. Ka-ching, 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 ka-ching. They said you're just ringing up the points.
Oh, because of the metal.
Yeah. And again, tournaments being a bit of a game, you learn where, like if I hit the face mask, they can't see all of my strikes. That short stick moves quick. They don't see all the arm motion, but if they hear the strikes, they know something's going on.
Yeah.
Now, talk about basics work for you. My toughest fight in either of the tournaments was, I can't remember the guy's name. It was my semifinal match in Cebu. I fought the captain of the Australian team. And the one thing I'll say about Australians is, in any sport they compete in, they're probably as physically fit as anybody that walks out on the field. I mean, it's an outdoor culture, right, Mike? They go out, they work out. It's like, they're all gung ho like that, And about 10 seconds into our first round, the guy throws like a backhand strike, catches me right over the ear hole of the helmet, which is one of those spots you know about, if you want to have advantages, it's like a legal hit, and and I saw stars. I literally saw stars. And I've been knocked out before, in the past, but I'd never seen stars before. When I'm on my feet, I'm seeing stars. And I just go, oh my God. I mean, literally what I thought was, oh my God, I will let it hit me with anything except that.
Except that.
And so every time he cocked back to throw a number 2 strike, I did the basic outside block for angle number 2, the most bread and butter basic first technique we learn in Serrada, which is block, strike.
Yeah.
And every time he came in with that, I blocked it and I smacked his hand hard.
Yeah.
After about 3 or 4 of those, he stopped throwing it.
He starts throwing the backhand.
He stopped throwing the backhand. And I won the match. My own coach, Fred Degerberg, was shocked. He was like, because the guy was a really good fighter. He ended up winning the open division. He knocked out someone else in the tournament with that strike, knocked him out cold. Degerberg goes up to their coach and he says, if you want to challenge the results of that match, as his coach, I won't object to the challenge. And their coach, good sportsmanship, he goes, no, your guy fought a brilliant fight. And every one of the guy's teammates came up to congratulate me. They said, that was brilliant, mate. Every one of them was saying that. Mm-hmm. Apparently in training in Australia, he'd been knocking out his training partners with that. He busted the steel welds on the face mask, he was in that skinny tournament rattan. I took his best strike away from him.
There
And
you
that was
go.
the difference. That
And
was
use
it.
it against them, actually.
And used it against him. Yeah, well, hitting him in the hand was pretty effective. And again, it's a fast technique. So before I went to the Philippines, Angel said, he called me up one day. He goes, "Don't forget your cross block. Don't forget your cross block." I never heard him say that about any other technique ever. It's one of those things. If you're there in the moment and you hear it, you understand, hey, well, that's why it's kind of in every angle that he teaches. It's his universal technique. He relies on it. But for tournament, it didn't really work too well because too much control of the check hand, the referee might break it. It's a slower developing technique. It's more of a control kind of a move. For me, for tournament, the bread and butter stuff were the really fast counters. Umbrella, smack.
Yeah.
Umbrella, 1, 2, 3, right? Outside block, hit the hand, come back up, scoop, hit him with a scooping hit, hand, head, abanico again, ding, ding.
Good.
Yeah, ring up that cash register. So that was good. The other thing was, and this applies to how tournaments are run now, is they've taken thrusting out for safety reasons. And I remember back, I think it was about 1992. In 91, I was on the board of directors that ran the first week half tournament in the US. And then shortly after, there was another week half qualifier, I think back in Baltimore. And some guy leaned back against a thrust and it slid up his chest underneath
Oh,
the
went up
throat
the
guard
roof.
and hit him in the throat. And he almost died. They rushed him to the
Yeah.
hospital.
It gets under the.
Yeah. So they took out the thrusting. Well, if you've got someone wearing one of those heavy padded recap jackets, and everyone gets in clinches. I call that dancing bear syndrome. It's like it's not an appealing look to the sport. But anyway, the only thing that could stop someone who was advancing relentlessly, you could abanico and slash to your heart's content. Those don't really do a whole heck of a lot, except maybe your trophies on the forearm.
Yeah.
But a thrust to the soft underbelly will stop someone advancing on you.
Yeah.
I took one to, the tantien, the 1 point below the belly button, like one, tantien. I took a thrust there in that tournament that I felt in my spine, which has caused me problems all the way to this day. The ruptured disc I now have in my back is the same one I felt getting impacted with that thrust through that padded jacket at the tournament. And that wasn't even a dos manos thrust. It was just a single hand boom, But, if someone's coming at you aggressively, thrusting is important. And if you live in a climate where people wear heavy winter clothing, slashing away,
Flashing's not
unless you're
especially.
hitting something up here, isn't going to be effective. But a gut thrust to the soft underbelly, yeah, I will never forget what that one felt like.
Yeah. So what
Yeah.
so what as far as you kind of touched on this, and actually Franz had the same question, which I
Yeah,
thought
you're
was a
taking
good one.
notes.
As far as the legacy of GM Cabalis and all that, what would you like to see as far as present day, as far as future being carried out in regards to that?
The sad fact is there are a number of first generation students of Angel who are around who are either inactive or only teaching like in very secluded, private settings. It's hard to say what's going on. I'm sure it's pretty strong out in Stockton. I really have no idea. The academy closed down. I don't know where Vincent teaches. He's Vincent's been somewhat reclusive, ever since he took over from his dad. And he's a great guy. I get along with him every time I see him. He's a fun person to hang out with. But he's not an organizational kind of person. He's not a control freak, which is actually something I like about him. He's
Yeah.
never He's never interfered with me doing what I do on my own. On the other hand, he's never really done much to bring me into the fold as one of his guys. The few times I've worked out with him, with the exception of maybe a single technique for angle number 4, where there's a footwork issue, we do everything pretty much on the same page. And that footwork issue, well, I do it the way Angel taught it. Angel changed how he did it at one point, whatever his reasons were. I do it the way I learned it. Do I understand the other variation? Yeah, I do, and which is actually something Angel put under his Largo Mono category. But what do I see as the legacy? I love teaching. I have a passion for it. I enjoy it. I mean, just doing this interview with you is probably the happiest I've been in FMA in the last like 3 or 4 years.
Cool.
But big mistake I made in my career was I started making sticks.
Which I want to touch. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. I'll get back to that. Well, no, I'll include it here. The reason I did that was after the tournament in 1989, I had a pile of broken rattan in my yard because I just trained so hard. And I was introduced to a friend of my first wife who invented polycarbonate. And he came over to my house with a briefcase that had all these squares about yay big of different thicknesses with different caliber bullets embedded in them. They would go to trade shows and the salesman would hold up a sheet of the material and they would shoot point blank at the guy's heart. And he goes, "We never lost a salesman." So that's what got me started on synthetic sticks, was this guy coming over and showing me what they could do. I mean, I immediately, went out and started researching different materials. And my incentive at the time wasn't to make a career out of selling sticks. I mean, I figured best maybe I'd sell 10,000 sticks over, several years. My idea was it was a way to connect with other people. This was pre-internet. I was advertising Black Belt magazine,
Right.
and Screamer Review was a hand-printed, stapled together newsletter that went out to the Philippines and England and around the country, and I ran ads in that. I had an 800 number at the time. My idea was it was a way to connect with other Eskrima people, because I was hoping to piggyback on that to get out and start teaching Serrada around the country. Never happened. I think in the last 30 years, the number of seminars I've done, I could count on the fingers of my hand and have several fingers left over. And I'd say half of those seminars was me just being invited to get up and do like 5 or 10 minute presentation at someone else's event, But at the same time, Angel taught me to be a teacher. He authorized me to teach before I ever had the advanced, certificate. 5 of my students went out to Angel when I felt they were ready. I sent them to Angel, and he actually put a package together. He said he'd give them 4 lessons and certify them for a certain fee. And it wasn't that it was just, I'll certify anybody. These are students that he had met over time, that had come out with me to visit, that, he'd seen video of them. They'd been at his seminars, that I was still training with Angel, and they were learning exactly the way I was learning. That was my goal, was to try and transmit the knowledge to others.
Yeah.
So in terms of Angel's legacy now, I see a lot of second and third generation students out there teaching it, and I see the amount of detail that has been lost. It's phenomenal. It's like, I run into people that, or my students will run into someone from another, lineage of Serrada, and, my guy will do a technique and they'll go, "Oh, where does that come from?" Well, this is something that Angel taught Jeff. "Oh, we've never seen that before." And, some of these are students of, people that I consider, Angel's best students. But did they have the time or inclination to pass everything along? I can't say what everybody's doing. There are a couple of people that I think are doing really phenomenal jobs out there. Wade Williams and his son, what's his son's name? Keenan, I think. Those guys are phenomenal. I haven't had contact with Wade since the first Bush the Elder administration. I don't know. It was I don't know what happened. I went out and visited his place, and we were kind of connected for a while, and then we just lost touch. But he does a phenomenal job. He's a really good teacher, and I think he passes everything along, pretty well. Another one is Darren Tabone. He, I mean, I Darren and I aren't friends, but we've done business over the years. I mean, I made training gear for his club, and I have a plaque of appreciation from Darren for supporting his organization. Like um, I think he presents the material a little bit too regimented for my mentality. I'm more of a make it all free kind of a guy. Um, but his students are very good, and there's some things in their methodology that maybe I differ a little bit, but I have no argument with what they do. Vincent's guys are very good, but they're all out in Stockton. I really don't see or hear from those folks very much. You have Carlito and Ron Saturno, who are really doing a lot to promote the art. But they're not as focused on the basics as maybe like Ron really likes to teach like simple practical application based on the basic techniques. And I do see he's got videos up now where he's teaching basic, but I don't think he emphasizes it to the degree that I do, because I teach it the way it was taught to all of us. I'm not trying to do shortcuts on it. I want people to have that experience of it. Who else is out there? Khalid Khan is down in Los Angeles, and Khalid's an interesting guy, and he kind of mixes
definitely
concepts
interesting.
and things in there. I mean, from time to time, he'll send me stuff, and I'll message him back and go, why did you do that way? Or it's not how I remember it. And he asked me for advice from time to time. And you talk about the certificate thing. Khalid has a master's certificate. He paid Angel the extra $1,000. But I've been told by a few people I was probably the last person to show up and get full training from Angel, because his health began going down, shortly after I got my certificate, or around that time. And that's when Khalid showed up to start his training, right around when I was finishing. So, I give him lots of props for putting it out there and working hard at it and doing it. I've supported, like when he's come up to the Bay Area and done seminars, I've shown up and supported him and backed him up and so forth. I think I could do a lot to clean up some of what he's doing, because I'm very technical. I've done a very technical analysis of the system. I was told Angel I wanted to write a book back, obviously when he was alive. And Angel's idea was everyone should have a workbook they could kind of fold up and stick in their back pocket and take to the park with them. It was before the internet, where you could just look up stuff, right? And then Mark Wiley said he was going to do a book. So Angel told me, let's wait and see what Mark Wiley does first.
Oh, okay.
And of course, Wiley's first book came out, and a lot of people were unhappy with it. I think he goes like 70 pages before he even gets into any of the material. And he doesn't really present a lot of the material. So it wasn't the workbook that Angel wanted. And so I was going to just basically, do something where every technique, describe the technique, do an analysis of it, and so on and so forth. And, I have lots of notes that I took back, when I was training with Anthony Davis and Angel Cabalis. I mean, I would sit in my car and write notes before I drove home so I wouldn't forget stuff.
Yeah, right. So you're home and you're like, what did I do?
And then I transcribe it. Yeah, actually, people like walk into a room and go, what did I come in here for? There's actually, I can't remember, there's a term for it, but psychologically, because when you walk through that door, you have to reorient your surroundings, and the brain forgets what it was focused on previously. Which is why I would tell my students, first thing you do when you get home, immediately practice something, even if you only do it like 2 or 3 times just to transfer the information from where you learned it to where you live and are going to go.
Interesting. Okay.
And when you practice it in a certain room, don't always face the same wall. Turn around. If you've never practiced facing a different direction, turn around. Are you suddenly going to be confused? So you need to do that. If you like to go out to bars and get drunk, better practice when you're drunk one night. If you like to smoke weed, practice, smoke a joint and go practice. Well, it's not uncommon in martial arts. I can't tell you how many grandmasters in different arts I've met that, they smoke weed and go train for a couple hours. So, I tell people, whatever it is that you do in your life, you have to be able to say that, your martial arts and your life are not separate. They're integrated into each other.
Yeah.
And for better or worse, if that's how your lifestyle goes, make sure you can handle it.
That's a good point. Wow. And so so how about guys, future for you? So what is your future goals, like whether FMA, musician? I mean,
Yeah. God, I'd love to be teaching FMA. I'd love to be out there again.
Yeah.
I don't see how to do it around here. I mean, it's like I can't get into any of the local schools, either they're not interested or they're already hooked up. There's a local teacher, Kembo guy. I've known him for God, close to probably over 40 years. He and my Kempo teacher used to rumble, in tournaments, and he's right around the corner from me. I remember Modern Arnis, Remy Jr. used to teach at his school. And I couldn't get in there because he's got another group in, they come in from out of town, and they're Filipino, and they teach a spaghetti system. And I shouldn't really knock it too much because I like what they do, and they do a very good job of it. And but I'm just saying it's an example of I can't get into any of the schools. So for the last 20 years. I've been teaching in my backyard or in parks. But it's kind of hard to keep that going if you don't have a regular presence. Anyway, I had an accident in 2019. That disc in my back that got injured in the tournament in the Philippines finally ruptured, and I've got a bone chip in my wrist, which is only just now starting to heal. So, I mean, I couldn't even do push-ups, let alone use a check hand,
Yeah.
So I couldn't jog or run or jump rope or hit a bag. I couldn't do anything with impact because of my back. And it's still messed up. And I don't know how much better it's going to get. So, I love teaching. I'd love to get back into it. Anyone out there wants any seminars, you know how to reach me.
I just find it because your name came so highly when I was initially making queries about who to bring on, as far as Cabales instructors. Nick came up, Ronson Turno, of course, a few others, but your name was like right up there. So wow, I just can't believe they're not taking advantage of what you have to offer.
Well, Serrada is such a small little pond. I mean, I go to this park in San Francisco and I see guys, either teaching, there's one group teaches Pikiti Tercia, and it looks like the instructor is a novice instructor. They all look like beginners. And there's another group, teaching out of a German system, which got its eskrima from Latosa, and they do it really badly. And it's not a reflection on Latosa. They're off doing their own thing, and they really have no clue. And I attended an introductory seminar from them, and they taught the most awkward way to throw an overhand number one strike I've ever seen in my life. I mean, it was like you couldn't kill a fly with it. I don't know. It was like just your elbow has to be out, and it was just a weird movement. It was very unnatural. And these folks, I look at their classes and they got 10, 12 students in their classes. And, I'd be out there in the park and I'd have two if both of them showed up.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe Serrada just scares people because it looks more live action, and because it doesn't take long to get people competent. I mean, in a month, they look like they know what they're doing.
Yeah. As far as maybe right, maybe because a lot, as you know, a lot of these systems. I mean, when they're doing the drills, the intention's not even there, and all that. So maybe when they see Serrata, like, you know,
Angel used to say all the time, if you practice, you should within a year you should be able to fight anyone from any style. And doesn't mean you're at the top of your game or anything like that, but you've got the tools if you practice. And I've seen people get really really good in a year.
mm,
Uh, I had one student who is an amazing practitioner, and he took to it like a duck to water. He'd had a year of Wing Chun, which I used to joke he probably got more out of that year of Wing Chun than I'd ever seen anyone get from martial arts. And he took to Serrata like he'd been born into it. I mean, it didn't take him a year, and he's rock solid, probably a better technician than I'll ever be.
wow. Well, I must credit to your teaching. I mean, wow. So do you think, like when you kind of, as far as your injuries are concerned, and in recovery, are you going to try to get out there again? I mean, once back is better.
Yeah, I mean, I should. I mean, the fact is, I think my technical understanding of Serrata is about as good as anybody out there.
That's what I hear.
I mean, in terms of my skill, I always said I was a B player. On a good day, I was a B plus player. I know who the A players are,
Mm,
but in terms of teaching, I think I understand, the logic and construction of this system, very, very well.
mm.
A couple of people, Nick, you're one of them, have been pushing me to, do the book again. And I figured, well, if I wrote a book, I could probably sell 10 copies as long as I buy 9 for myself.
Nah,
Who
you
reads
probably
books
should, because
anymore?
the last one, I mean, yeah,
You know, there's J.C. Caballero, his book that he put out, and it's been in and out of print over the years, is a really good book. Tom Meadows, Latigo Idaga guy, he actually had a copy, and he didn't need it, so he gave it to me. That's how I got mine.
mm,
It's basically been out of it, but that's about as good a print version of Serrata as anyone's done.
yeah,
Um, there's things he does in his videos that I think are a little strange, but the more I learn, the more I realize that it's not completely out of the ballpark. It's just maybe stuff I haven't seen that got dropped from the curriculum at different points. Things
mm,
change. I mean, Angel evolved his system over time too. Nothing was
yeah.
static.
Well, you should do it.
Yeah, I know. Let's just put it in the work. Yeah. Again, I love teaching. I get a lot of joy from it. And hopefully, when I do teach, that's what comes across. I'm not trying to project the macho attitude. I want people to fall in love with the art. That's kind of, what
Yeah.
my goal would be.
Yeah. Well, Nick, I mean, Nick speaks so highly of you, and he basically is saying what you just said as far as your love for the teaching, and that you don't convey, this macho, like you said. So, very, very similar to what Nick says about you. So,
I've had people show up there, and if they're looking for a teacher that imparts that kind of, if they're looking for Cobra Kai, that guy's down the street.
Cobra Kai, Cobra Kai
Cobra Kai
Kali.
Kali, there you go. I
I
wonder if
wonder, I
no
wonder
one
who
jumped on
represents
that
Cobra
one
Kai
yet. I'm
Kali.
trademarking that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I don't think I've ever had to tell a student, no, you're a bad fit, you have to leave. It's like those people will, they'll leave and they'll find somebody who matches that.
Yeah, who matches what? Yeah, their
What their
personality.
expectations are.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's for sure. That's for sure.
So, are
Wow.
there other questions anyone's got in there?
I don't think I'll take a quick check, but I don't think I missed any. I'm double checking right now. I think I'm usually pretty good about. I mean, Brian asked something about what spaghetti system is, but Nick answered.
Dan Medina.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh
yeah,
my God, Dan Medina is an amazing martial artist. He did Shore Patrol for 5 years in the
yeah. He was.
Philippines.
We had him on. Yeah,
So, he's got more hands-on skill tying people up in joint locks than just about
yeah,
anybody you'll ever meet. Oh my God, he's a wizard at it. I love that
yeah,
guy.
yeah.
Awesome.
He was. We definitely had him. He was on some time ago. That was another good one. Uh, so
Okay,
then,
now this is interesting. Brett Reese mentions broken rhythm. There's something about that seems sort of like almost inherent in the Filipino culture, because I've noticed like um, I was a distance runner when I was young, mile, 2 mile cross country.
yeah,
Not a lot of fast twitch muscle, not a lot of white muscle fiber. So, I don't have really good, broken rhythm, fast twitch kind of movement. I'm smooth, which is good, but that smooth can get broken
you got to
down.
do. That's what
And
Piper
I've met
gives
so many Filipinos who naturally have that the
you.
erratic, static kind of broken rhythm. And if you can learn that kind of timing, it's pretty wonderful stuff.
It
Yeah.
is. It's one of the things that's really stressed in Piper. That quick twitch, the fluctuation. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
you
Let's
decide to
see.
come. Yeah, we got to get your. Yeah. So that. But yeah. So again, this has been wonderful. I appreciate you.
There's that quote from Nick.
Oh, is that now?
He had a question about something. I said, did the technique not work, or did you not work the technique?
Oh.
And that's something I try to impart to my students. Like, your knowledge is your shield, okay? And I mean, your stick is, I know it's a metaphor, and the Dog Brothers will go, it's not a magic wand, it's not a
Yeah.
sword,
Oh,
it's a
right.
stick.
That video.
But
It's
I
not
go,
magic.
all right, right. But I go, it's your sword and it's your shield, right?
Yeah.
You defend and attack with it, right? I said, but your knowledge is really your shield, because if you don't believe in what you're doing, if you're not if you don't stand behind, the technique that you're practicing, it's not going to work. It's like if you don't believe it's going to work, it's like throwing your stick on
Yeah.
the
If you
ground.
don't believe, right. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Interesting. We got
That's an important one.
you.
And that was something Anthony Davis was real good on, was talking about the psychological aspects and so forth. I want to, he gets upset if he doesn't get props for what he's contributed. And Anthony's contributed some good stuff. I know he's controversial. A lot of people in Serrata are controversial. I'm
That's
controversial because I'm not from Stockton.
That's what I hear. I hear you Stockton guys are no. Just here's it. Actually, a question from Albert just came in. A few years back, Jeff had a video of flowing with blades. It looks almost different from most Serrata. What are his thoughts?
Who wrote that? Where's that one at? Different. Oh, video flowing with blades. Okay, yeah, I know which one he's talking about. I'm with my student Jonathan Winter, and we were actually just kind of doing trades and stuff, and then he wanted to see variations on stuff. So I said, well, you just start throwing stuff, and I'll do whatever.
Hmm.
And he says it looks almost different from Serrata because I'm doing things like maybe coming in and doing certain, like say sweeps. Like, one of the things I like, in Serrata, you learn to do passing your attack. So you learn to move from an outside to an inside position, from an inside to an outside
Oh,
position.
inside,
So you
outside,
learn to,
gates.
you
Okay.
learn to do the passes, high passes. You learn to do the passes, low passes.
Okay.
Okay. So wherever you're at, you can change your position relative to your opponent. So, and there's all kinds of tricks and ways to do it. So there's standard ways of doing it, Serrata. But, over the years, you pick up a little something here, a little something there. Some of the influences, again, Sonny Impod got mentioned in there. We didn't really talk about him. So, for instance, I might do a cross block, and I might pass with the punyo. And as I pass with the punyo, as I shift my body alignment, the blade naturally is lined up. There's my thrust.
Mm.
Okay, and this is one thing. Talk about legacy. Angel was a small guy. I mean, at his prime, he was what, 5'2", 120 pounds at his top weight,
Wow.
maybe.
Yes.
And so for him to be so powerful in his stuff, his structure, his body alignment had to be perfect.
Mm.
And so he had shifts of the body that a lot of people in Serrada don't do. Their hands get really good and they just do everything right here, boop, 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 like this. Okay. And it can be done that way. I'm not saying it's wrong. There's more than one way to skin a cat. But Angel would teach, for instance, if you block here, maybe it's a thrust, you're still open behind the block. So it's the shift. You create the plane. And he did everything. He taught everything, keeping it in really close. Because
Mm.
if you can block it here, you can block it here, you can block it here.
Okay.
But if you only know how to block it here and someone gets inside, do you know what to do? Okay. Again, my Kempo teacher used to say, if you fight like a basketball, or if you train like a basketball, you fight like a beach ball. You train
Mm.
like a softball, you fight like a basketball. You train like a golf ball, you fight like a softball. So in other words, the tighter and more compact you can do your movement, when you're adrenalized, when you're stressed out, when things fall apart, they won't fall apart as badly if your habit is to stay tight.
Okay.
Okay.
Interesting.
And so Angel really emphasized a lot of tightness. There's a technique against a thrust that we do where, it's a pass like this. And I see everybody reaching like so. And an idea of the type of detail that Angel would do, if he caught me reaching like that, he would just go, no. And of course, he would show you why. Because, Angel had what he called picking, which are like feints. Okay. And so maybe you throw that thrust in and you start to reach out and he would just slip back and boom, he's inside.
You're right. When you're reaching for, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the subtlety, that 1 inch difference in the timing and the ranging,
Mm.
everything. And so, you know, so, I teach the body dynamics on any given technique. I tell my students, this is what you're doing with your weapon, with your stick, this is what you're doing with your secret weapon or your empty hand. And then there's what you're doing with your body alignment. And if you do all three of those things correctly, these techniques have a very high probability of success. If you do 2 out of 3, you're still in good shape. If you do 1 out of 3, you've got a chance.
You
And if
got
you screw up all 3 of them, you didn't learn it from me.
I didn't teach him that.
That's how I teach it.
Jeez, man.
So, so I try to emphasize like a lot of those details, and maybe I go a little bit overboard with it. But again, it's like if people don't see that, and Angel emphasized those kind of things, if people don't, understand how it's supposed to work, because like that technique about the reach, where it's like, whoo, it's like right there. Angel called that bar to bar. And I said, what do you mean by bar to bar? He says, well, in the older days, I was a borracho. I was a drunk. He was a farm labor contractor. He'd pick people up at 7 in the morning, take them out to the farm, drop them off, come back at 4 in the afternoon, pick them up. So what did he do all day? He went bar to bar, have a drink, get in a fight, go to the next bar, rinse and repeat. That was his lifestyle at one point. And so the idea in that technique is when the guy in the next bar stool suddenly tries to stick you, you don't have time to see it coming and go, oh, there it is. It's like it's coming at you and it's like, whoa.
Mm.
It's supposed to be that tight. It's a last second reaction. It's like, my God, it just saved my bacon. That was the whole idea of that. I called that technique bar to bar. And so a lot of this stuff kind of goes like that. People like say, cross block, power block, angle number 3. There's your cross block. And people will reach way out on it. That's too easy to beat that because all I have to do is drag the tip of my weapon behind the hand, and that tip is just going to slap right inside on them behind their block.
Yeah.
I mean, again, it's one of those things being experienced and having done this for, I'm like, what, 37 7 years or something like that into Serrada now, something ridiculous like that.
That's
You know,
incredible.
I've seen a lot of stuff, and I've played with a lot of people and with different systems. So I can say, this is why, if you do it tight and I try to drag that same tip, it's gonna pop past you. It'll miss.
Hmm.
And so I always tell my students that Serrata is like a laboratory, a laboratory. Um, we test the premise. If something isn't working, we break it down, we analyze it. Why is it not working? Does the technique need to be changed, or do you need to change how you're doing the technique? You know,
Hmm.
and
Science lab. Yeah.
I've always had teachers that were very open with me. I've never had any teachers tell me, no, you can't do this, you can't do that. I don't seek out people who have that kind of mentality. Um, and so, great example, back in my old Kempo days, we had like this one technique that we've been teaching for years, and I had a beginning student do it wrong one day, and it worked better.
Mm.
And I went to my teacher, and it was more consistent with concepts I'd learned from Aikido, like the whole heaven and earth concept. You split the person's energy, as opposed to everything going one way where they can resist. If you do like a high and a low movement at the same time, they can't adjust the same way.
Right.
And this guy's mistake not only did that perfectly, but it opened up the next strike better than how we'd been doing it. Got the guy's arm out of the way. So I went to my
Ah.
teacher and I said, hey, this mistake works better. And he says, then we're teaching it that way from now on. And, I didn't have any of those moments with Angel because, he'd already worked all that stuff out. But,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Figured
again,
it out
the
already.
same idea is that if something isn't working, and we're going to break it down and analyze it. And Angel, he didn't approve a technique until either he was satisfied with it or just realized you were too much of an idiot to get it, and maybe eventually you'll figure it out on your own. But at least he gave you the tools. This
Wow.
was something Angel would do. Oh my God. So I'd go to the academy at night and I'd see some of the really advanced players. They do a move that was like something Angel had been working on me that day, but they're doing it different. I go, Angel, is that a more advanced way of doing it? And he goes, oh no, they saw that from some other instructor. He goes, I tell my students what to do, but they don't listen to me. I'm like, okay. So,
Mm.
and there's variations, and not all of them are bad. For instance, I can say, okay, Angel did it this way, Anthony Davis does it this way, Wade Williams did it this way, Sultani, and it's like I can sort of mimic different people's versions of some of these techniques. Uh, there's one technique that actually Sultanuddin, I like his footwork better than what Angel taught. It's not that Angel's footwork is wrong, but maybe I don't have the foot speed to time it right. Sultan's footwork was simpler and it works for everybody. So when I teach it, I say this is Sultan's variation, just so they understand the difference.
Mm.
I don't want to say this is all from Angel, and someone says, "Well, Angel taught it different." Well, okay, yeah, no, Angel taught it that way, and I understand it that way, but I prefer this version of it. And it's still within the lineage. So, I've borrowed from a few people along the way that way as well.
Yeah. Nothing wrong with that, especially if they found a better way of approach or doing
Well,
it or more
what
efficient.
Sonny Impod said, if you're going to steal from the best.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. If you're gonna, yeah. Right. If you're just.
So we didn't talk about Sonny much, but it was funny because, you know, Angel, he would talk about, people would steal from him, right? Said, I do this, but, people always steal, they had 5 angles, now they have 12, that kind of a thing. And I mentioned Sonny one day and he goes, oh yeah, he's one of those guys that steals from me. But, whenever you saw the two of them together, they got along great.
Yeah.
I mean, Sonny would call an Angel Do, which means uncle, I think in Visayan. And I don't speak the science, so if I'm wrong, correct me. But anyway, and Angel loved it because he could speak in like different local Philippine dialects with the guy, and it was like going home in a way, and they got along great. And so I told Sonny one day, I said, "Yeah, Angel says you're one of the guys that stole from him." He goes, "Well, if you're going to steal from the best."
So he wasn't.
Now I know a couple of guys. Carlito and Wade Williams wanted to meet up with Sonny. They wanted to train with him after Angel died, and they knew that I, was friends with Sonny, and so basically, Sonny was cool with it. So I passed his phone number on so they could get in touch, and I'm not sure. Carlito went out a few times. I'm not sure how much contact he had. I think health and travel time was an issue. Wade, I think Wade obviously was much more involved because now he's part of the Cyan Guild in Oakland. It was kind of a funny thing because he told me at one point he was training knife with this knife expert and he wouldn't say who it was. Well, it was the guy that I introduced him to.
Oh, that's funny.
It's funny how people are sometimes.
Wow. We're gonna have to get you back on. Maybe get like you and Nick back on or somebody else. And
we can fight.
Yeah, we have you're right. You guys could virtually, go ahead.
Angel Cabalis and Gilbertino. This was a story from Art Gonzalez that he'd be at a restaurant maybe with Gilbertino eating lunch, and there'd be like maybe Angel across the room. They'd see each other, and they'd be doing like finger signs, and he's like, "What are they? Finger signs?" No, they're doing an eskrima fight.
Oh, that's funny. Distance. Oh, that's funny.
But only in Stockton, you're going to go out to, Denny's and run into like another grandmaster in a different system. It's not like LA where everything's all scattered out and the rest of the country. Stockton's a whole different flavor. It's its own world.
Wow. But wow, we're going on almost 2.5 hours. This has been awesome. Time flies.
I had breakfast before we started.
Yeah. Time flies over there. So, but this has been great. I appreciate you coming on, but I don't want this to be the last time. We're gonna have to get you on somebody else. Maybe Ron, so you and Ron or somebody.
Twist my arm a little bit. Well, no, Ron's got such a wealth of information.
I know.
We've been trying to get him talking about acupuncture at some point. Man, he's deep on that.
Yeah, it'd be nice to get you both on. You can get Nick. Actually, that would be a good trio. You, Nick, and Ron.
And Carlito.
Oh yeah, Carly is always welcome. Oh yeah, he's such a great guy. But I'm gonna talk. We'll work it out. But again, I appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much.
Well, I appreciate you having me on. I mean, this was a lot of fun, and
I
was really nervous about it. Like I said, I've been out of the art for a few years now.
Oh my gosh.
And it's like I've been feeling discouraged, and it's like with back injury, I can play music. I can do that. So that's sort of where all my energy's gone lately. I'm playing guitar and harmonica, like in a blues.
I make it easy for everybody to come on. So I make it where they're gonna enjoy themselves and feel welcome, no pressure. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
yeah. No, this was good. This was the most fun I've had.
We'll definitely Nick's already agreed. So if worst case worst, if Ron, we can't get around. I mean, but I would definitely make it happen. Carlito, sure. I mean,
Have you ever got Vincent on?
Names come up. Somebody I would like to get on. Yeah, definitely.
I know Nick's been in contact with him. Certainly a lot more, than I have in the last few years. So, maybe
definitely. I mean.
He's the top guy in Serrada. I teach it, but it's his family system.
Yeah, definitely know his name, but we'll definitely try to get that. So, but all right. Well, hey, will you take care of yourself? I appreciate it.
I know. Well, thanks for being so patient with me. Look like we're tiring you out.
No worries. It was great. This is what I do. So, and Terry, yeah, everybody's loved. Great interview. Good seeing you. Great interview.
Hey, Terry, we still haven't got together to play music.
Yeah.
He bought a guitar and amp from me last year.
He's a barbecue guy. You guys get together.
Barbecue. Hey, I was supposed to go commercial with a barbecue sauce back in the 1980s.
Jeez.
And the guy that had the National Food Company had a heart attack and died. So we never got the project off.
Yeah.
I have a unique barbecue sauce. It's a combination of both an Eastern and a Chinese and a Western sauce. It's unique.
Wow, that's Terry. Bring it to Terry. That's his gig, man. Yeah, he's that guy's always barbecuing something.
Well, I need to get out to Stockton more often. I got family living out there these days.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's 2.5 hours, 225.
It was good. It's good.
Yeah.
People enjoyed it. That's all that matters. That you enjoyed it and the people enjoyed it. So
Yeah. Well, you made my Sunday. Now all that's left to do is go listen to music the rest of the day.
there you go. And swing a stick. So,
Yeah. No, I got some friends playing this afternoon. I might get to sit in with them. They're pros, so it'll be a good gig.
all right.
All right.
All right. Hey, you enjoy the rest of your day. You take care.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Absolutely.
All righty. Take care.
Ooh. I don't know what happened there. This thing's been really funky today.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Man, your life's got a mind. So, all right. Wow, that was a great one. It was longer, but hey, it was worth it. So who's next? Tom Pena, Big 300 is interviewing Harry Flexman Tuesday night. So check that out. You guys get a chance. I'm not sure what time, but I think Tom's already generated the flyer, so you guys should probably be seeing it. And then I got Michelle Kuzma Thursday. So yeah, so we got a couple this week. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to FMA Discussion on YouTube, where all the money is received goes to charity. All right, folks. I will see you. Well, you'll see Tom Tuesday. You won't see me on Thursday. All right. Take care.